Well, hello people of Defend the House and welcome back to The Tower. This is the series where we rank the majority of new AAA releases against one another. Today we are doing a very late Starfield chat, and that is mostly my fault. We will get to that. And also we'll be doing the new-ish game, Spider-Man 2 for the PlayStation 5. Also today for the Starfield chat, we are joined by our podcast host, Benjamin. Welcome, dude.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Fancy to see you guys here on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Hi.
Well, a lot of the times we don't really clash when it comes to playing the same AAA games as Ben, but whenever they do, we try to get him on board as well. I'm not sure how it's going to go when it comes to ranking the games with Ben, but we will figure that out when we get to it.
It's fine. It's our show. We do what we want.
Yeah, well, the reason we are so late to Starfield is because I didn't finish it. And I did say that I was going to finish it, and I kind of misled the boys. They waited like a month for me to do it, and eventually I just was like, I don't think I want to do that. Which I
think we sort of generally had a shift in thought since the last episode of The Tower.
It wasn't I didn't feel like I had to. I just really wanted to see it to the end. It's just like a big, moment in gaming. It's a big AAA boy. And there was a deep curiosity in me about how it wraps up. And I just like to finish games if we're going to talk about them in their, whole, whatever you want to call it, encompassing review style thing. I like to be able to look at how things pan out across 60 hours instead of 25 hours, which is what I think I put into it. But you two boys have finished the game. So we have two people here who have finished the game and one guy who didn't want to, which kind of spoils maybe the tone of some opinions before we've even got started.
I will say, just because I beat it didn't mean I wanted to.
Should I just go first? Because you guys have complete full opinions of Starfield. And
sure.
I have a third of the game done in my brain.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I think I want to start because I think my first 2 to 3 hours of Starfield were actually quite positive, and I was really surprised by my first chunk of playing Starfield because I expected this game to be a bit of a mess from specific angles like technology, performance, bugs, and the game actually ran really well for me. There's going to be a little bit of bias in that statement because, I do have a pretty decent rig. But nowadays, I don't know, you can get PC ports which are so fucked up that it doesn't matter what you have. You can't even brute force some of these games coming out this year on PC. Starfield ran well for me. I did encounter bugs, obviously, but I do think, performance-wise, visual, even some of the art design was maybe some of the best stuff I've seen Bethesda do. And I also, very quickly, during the opening hours, because it starts off pretty combat heavy, I was like, okay, this feels completely fine to me. Instantly the AI was very poor. We'll probably come back around to that. But the shooting felt arcadey and lenient, but kind of satisfying, and there was pretty early on a decent variety of weapons. And then I was looting a bunch of shit, didn't know what anything was. Again, we can come back around to all these points. But what I'm saying, too long didn't listen, is I started off with this, a really positive opinion with this game for my first 4 to 5 hours. And then the game just started talking. A lot. The game started talking over and over and over and over again. And I don't know how to say this just in a way that isn't just completely blunt. But this game just wasn't interesting in its foundations of its world and its story and its characters and its writing. And I'm honestly disappointed and surprised. I feel like Starfield is the inverse of how most of my old Bethesda games experiences went. Fallout and The Elder Scrolls, they were always a little clunky when they came out. They never ran that well, and I think Skyrim looked very decent for the time, but apart from that, they were never the peak of technology. But the games had a great sense of place. They had a great sense of tone and style, and there was edges of silliness and quirkiness. Fallout for me is my favorite. Fallout is maybe more silly than the Elder Scrolls series, but the Elder Scrolls still had like a little bit of goofiness to it. It never took itself too seriously, and I guess it depends in like which direction you start Starfield. But I started with like the New Atlantis. What's that storyline where you're like a policeman at New Atlantis? That's the direction I went to start.
The UC Vanguard.
The Vanguard, yeah. It was just a really boring space setting. Like, space is the most, like, interesting place possible if the right people are, you know, directing the story. And it was just like bureaucratic red tape logistical working, and like nothing really interesting was happening. There's other things I do want to bring up. I actually have one problem which is like really prevalent and really important, but I don't want to just like dive into gameplay stuff before you guys have given like your initial overall opinions. But yeah, I'm going to just stop there and just say that the game to me just doesn't have a sense of cool, and it doesn't really have a sense of like personality or soul.
The game is so fucking boring.
Yeah.
It's so soulless and lifeless and devoid of anything resembling like creativity or personality or style or cleverness or anything. It's like they spent 10 years honing in and perfecting how to make the most like middle tier of every single thing possible. They're like, we cannot make this game interesting in any way. We cannot give it any personality.
Yeah.
It has to be like glassy-eyed nothing the entire time.
It took me a while to like figure out what was off about Starfield, because it feels like maybe their most like objectively competent game from like gameplay and design and visuals, but you can't like you can't like rank cool factor or tone or setting through like the typical video game review statistics of like graphics and all this other stuff. It's just like
it has no
feeling
style
in your gut where you're like, I'm not invested in this world. I don't really know why. I'm in space, I can go to other planets, I can fly a ship, I can shoot people in the face, there's powers, but I'm not gripped by any of it, and it like took 25 hours for me to realize that the game, it wasn't cool. And I think that's a weird thing to say for a video game review, to say it's not cool. I don't know how to quantify coolness in video games, but it just wasn't like funny or quirky.
It has no personality at all.
There was no cool to it, man. I don't know how else to put it.
Like, there's no drama at all. There's no humor at all. There's no tension at all. It's just people speaking so much to you and saying nothing. And none of them have any distinguishable personality. And none of the settings feel like coherently part of the same universe. The way something like, you know, Mass Effect can. Yeah. It's just every part of the game is just so... I don't know what the right word is for it. Because Bethesda games, I've always felt this way to me in a lot of their writing, especially Fallout, especially Fallout 4, where it's just like, there's just something to the way characters in their games talk, and like, it's a combo of the words they say and the way they say it, and it's like they took that sort of weird, glassy-eyed boredom and applied it to everything in Starfield.
Yeah. This game didn't end with like me slamming my hand down on my keyboard. It just faded away from my, faded from existence in my brain. Yeah.
My journey was like the first 10 hours I was playing. I was like, this is unbelievably boring.
Yeah.
And then I shot one bullet accidentally at a system defense friendly ship during a star fight, and immediately got arrested and impounded for that. Which was the most jarring and jank thing ever. And then immediately got put on the Crimson Fleet quest line and did that whole thing, and actually kind of enjoyed that whole quest line because
it was got to that.
There was like the tiniest inkling of personality and intrigue, and you know, you were playing two factions against each other, and that was like 8 hours long, and then I spent from the 18-hour mark to beating the game at, I don't know, the 50-hour mark, feeling exactly the same way about the first 10 hours, which is, this is so boring. And it is not an RPG. It's barely a story game because all of the stories are so boring. The RPG systems don't exist or have any impact on anything. The worlds are all nothing. Like, I spent 40 hours just being like, there's nothing here. There's nothing in this game that's interesting at all or compelling in any way. And then I stopped playing it and have never thought about it again.
I liked some location design, is what I'll say. I thought some of the locations looked
Like
pretty
some
cool
of the
design-wise.
like places where you actually have to go and do
some
things.
of the
settlements.
Settlements.
Like places for that actually you have to do something at.
Some of the art design, like on their, like in the ships and stuff, is solid.
Yeah, really nice detail density in a lot of those, and like
definitely.
populated areas, ships, kitchens, the food. Oh my god, the food! Some of this food looks.
I thought the game looked surprisingly good, honestly.
Yeah, it certainly has its moments.
It looks good, not in motion a lot of the time. I think it's really.
Yeah.
I think it's so interesting when we talk about like an absence of something. I think what I wrestle with is it's disjointed in a weird way where holy hell, there's a lot of gosh darn humans in this game that everything is human. There's humans everywhere.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Everything is human. The settlements are human. Construction is human. Architecture is human. Like, everything is human everywhere. And you're talking to humans, it's everything. And it's just like, why are we set here? It's very clear you might have wanted to tell a story about, not to get ahead of things, but space and time. But you just didn't really think about space other than ships and... Like, other than the what's on... You drew a picture of space, and we get to walk around it a little bit, but it's just like, you can find a copy of King... Like, they allude to King Arthur. And it's like, you're referencing literature that, like, is, like, barely referenced in modern day. It's just like, I don't...
We're like 500 years in the future.
Yeah, like...
It'd be like referencing, like, Beowulf.
Yeah,
often or something.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
this
yeah.
is a 1,000-year-old book. Why is Charles Dickens around everywhere in these fucking lodges?
Oh, it's just, it's confusing. It's confusing because it's supposed to be, at least... I think my overall opinion stems from this. I was led to believe that this was the most important RPG of all time, and I'm just having a really, I'm just really having a hard time after 60 hours with it, with what I was told it was going to be in the first place. It's a game that is so fat and bogged down in itself. That it's just. I am scared of open world AAA spaces that want to scale big like this because I'm not seeing a video game here very much at all. I'm seeing fast travel and I'm seeing resource collection, but I'm not understanding where do good number go up that I can share. Like where is the game here? Like I do damage to guys, I collect a resource. I build towards an end of this game, but at the end, it's not even anything. I think at the end of the day, I've come away from Starfield, in broad strokes speaking, just confused and extremely trepidatious about the future of this particular scale of game.
Yeah.
The game, I agree in that it's got so many systems in it, and most of them are all from Fallout 4. But they don't gel together into anything cohesive at all. And it's like, where's the game? And I know what you mean, because I spent the last 25 hours just walking directly at people, shooting them with an exploding shotgun, and literally stopped investing in the skill tree because the skill tree itself has nothing interesting in it. And that applies to like every part of the game. It's like they took all of Fallout 4 systems and expanded on them and then made 1,000 worlds, and you're like, but why? Like there's no overarching vision at all. It's just like, oh, you can craft weapons. Okay. Oh, you can build outposts. But why? Oh, so you can get resources. And it's like, there's all this junk in the world. But why? Oh, because Fallout 4 had it. But in Fallout 4, it was useful and actually you used the junk for something. You used it to build your outposts. And your outposts were more useful because it was the post-apocalypse. And that made sense in some capacity. And here's the skill tree and RPG systems and dialogue trees and but none of it matters at all because every dialogue option just says the same thing. Every quest plays out the same way if you just shoot everyone. The shipbuilding doesn't matter. It's just like every single system they put in doesn't matter and doesn't feel cohesive, and it's just so bizarre.
the skill tree is so interesting because the weight of a skill point is, I would say, fairly significant.
Yeah, they don't come often in the game.
No, just once per level up, but there are probably 60 skills, or like 50 or 60 skills total.
Yeah.
And they each upgrade 4 times, so you're talking about kind of a large scale, which is implying multiple runs of the game, yada yada. But I found it interesting that they not only... The weight of a point or what you could upgrade things to, like, all had different value in some way. Something as minute as, like, improving your medicine crafting is, like, a third level down in your... like, it's so far...
Right.
It's deep down in your skill tree, which, for like, the misweight in the skill tree is so confusing to me. And it also... I find it feature keeps in a way. Like, you can't interact with your ballistics weapon system unless you spend a point. Or you can't even use your jetpack unless you spend a point. Or you can't use your ship's thruster unless you spend a point. It's just like, why am I... You can't even sneak unless you spend a point.
Oh, like, wow, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, they lock away, like, fundamental gameplay systems behind skill trees. And then once you get those, like, 6 or 8 of, like, oh, now I can jump. And now I can boost. Then you're just like... None of the other skills are meaningful. Like, I don't need to upgrade my medicine because there are 7 trillion healing items in the world.
Yeah.
I don't need to upgrade my shotgun damage because everything just dies because the AI just stands still and don't do anything. Like, every single skill in the game you look at and you're like, I don't need to barter because I don't need to, like, get a 10% discount.
I've maxed out that stat and never used it. It's so weird.
Right. Or like, oh, I put lots of skills into persuading people, but then you get into the persuade dialogue and you're like, this is the most baffling alien thing in the entire game is the human dialogue when you're persuading someone.
You make a good point. I'm starting to see it your way.
Yeah, the system is bad,
it's so terrible. And then it's just like, none of the skills are useful.
It's crazy.
And they're not like RPG skills. Like you said, it's just like, oh, I can shoot my pistol to do more damage. It's like, it's basically just, most of the skill tree is just, do you want to sneak or do you want to shoot? And if you want to shoot, what gun are you using most? And that's all you pick. There's no, like, character growth or role-playing sense at all to me.
But then you can also be all of it at the same time, too. So,
exactly.
Like,
you don't need any of the skills to do any of it.
No, like, I don't need a skill to shoot the gun. Yeah.
Right.
Like, I never poured... my entire combat tab is empty. I did not put a single point into actual combat.
I put most of my points into it just because all the other skills seemed useless. And I figured, well, if I can make the combat go by a little faster, I'll eventually beat the game quicker, I guess.
Yes, I think all of my points went into inventory space for me and my ship.
Oh, God. Yeah, I mean, the one cheating I did was immediately remove the inventory stuff because...
That was the most fun I had in the entire game, was just trying to carry all my garbage, and it was like a gameplay like fault from the design perspective.
Right.
Like, it just should have been better, and just trying to make that work was the most fun, like, objective I made in the game, because it was my own objective, and not like a map marker or a quest that I had to follow along. Just tying, like, a bunch of shipping containers to this dumb little ship is probably my only, like, inspired memory of Starfield.
I can't even get started on the inventory
stuff. The inventory stuff
dude.
is... I was over encumbered 30 minutes into the game. Because...
And never unencumbered again.
No, exactly. And it's so weird, and like I said, in Fallout 4, all the loot was worth grabbing because you used it to make weapon mods and build your bases, and then you could scrap it. And then they got rid of that entire system for this game, but they left all the junk lying around, and it's impossible to know.
You can't destroy anything either.
Yeah, and there's no way to know what's useful or not until you learn the names of the crafting materials that you want and what they look like, and then you have to find inventory space on your ship or an empty cupboard in the lodge to pour all of your shit, and then you can't pull the shit out of the locker that's 1 foot away from the crafting bench. You have to go and pick it all back up, craft your thing, then put it all back in the locker right beside it, and you just
have
like,
a heart attack taking
this.
the 3 steps where you're completely encumbered with all your minerals.
See, that's where you got to make the mega ship, because then you can craft from the ship inventory.
Yeah,
that's where I just open the console and say, make my inventory 99999, because this is how every Bethesda game goes.
Yeah, but that was the only problem I had to solve in the entire game.
Right, that's fair, that's fair.
That's where the real drama was for Joe.
Fun. Yeah, it was like the only, I think, like, micro story I was telling you guys in the Discord was my journey to carry bullshit in that game.
Your big dumb square cargo hauling ship.
Yeah. I'm gonna pivot on to the most important point for me. That really kind of like broke pretty much the entire game, honestly. My favorite memories of Skyrim and of Fallout 3 and a little bit of Fallout 4 is when you are quite fresh to the map and you pick up a quest and the quest is like 800 meters away and you look at the world map and you're like, oh shit, this is like a 45-minute in real life walk. And then you start to progress towards this quest marker, and 6 hours later it's like 3 a.m. in the morning for you, and you haven't even done that quest because you've been distracted about these things, these caves, these broken down hotels that you've naturally found while moving around the world, and you're doing like a different quest and you're in a different place, and you kind of make this organic storyline yourself through exploration. And that doesn't exist in Starfield because you can fly everywhere.
Well,
and
there is no open world, really. Like,
no, but there's planets, and planets are big, so they could have made areas to go from A to B to, and they kind of do populate the planet with these like micro activities, but from what I saw, they were worthless. I tried like 3 of them, and they were just like caves and
they're just
micro quests.
procedurally generated trash.
Yeah, and maybe I'm wrong, and there is substantial stuff scattered amongst those, but I mean, when I try like 3 of them and none of them are substantial, then I'm not going to continue to invest risking my free time into seeing if there is something out there on 75 different planets that I go to. It's just like the core foundation of movement and travel in the game is just so different from Skyrim, the Elder Scrolls, and the Fallout series that you just don't get these natural feeling organic quest lines which appear from you choosing where to go. You just open the menu and travel to where you're supposed to go, and a quest just happens A, B, C, D, E. I like getting like lost in a quest. I start a quest, I end up doing something else. I'm like, I'm in this town, I might as well do this quest for this little old granny. She sends you into a cave, you fight a big spider, and you pick up a diary. It's like the chain reaction, causality, I'm somewhere where I didn't plan to be type stuff, which I love about these open world RPGs. And that didn't happen in 25 hours. I was just systematically going down a checklist of things I had to do. I was fast traveling everywhere. And that was the biggest impactful thing, negatively impactful thing, about the format of Starfield and the gameplay loop. It ruined the thing that I love most about Bethesda games is games.
It was shocking to play it for the first time and realize space was literally just a loading screen. I was genuinely shocked because like you said, Bethesda, their entire thing, the entire reason people like Bethesda games is because you have one world that you wander around in, exactly like what you said. And that's not like a new thing. That's been their structure for 25 years.
Yeah, they basically created it.
Yeah, pretty much. And then they're just like, no, that's not how Starfield is anymore. It's just a bunch of little towns on planet-sized planets that you just fast travel to. And I remember the first thing I did when I got to New Atlantis, I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna wander out of the city, and see what's out there. Too. And I couldn't leave the city on foot because it's just, that's how the game works. I mean, you actually can, if you do some weird jetpacking, you can actually escape, but I didn't understand. I didn't have the jetpack skill at the time. But there was just like no feasible way to leave the city, and so then I placed a marker to land. I think I eventually figured out how to do that and like land outside the city, and then you just get there and there's nothing. There's nothing there. It's just procedurally generated caves. And it was genuinely shocking to me because I just presumed, of course, it was going to be a Bethesda game with a coherent world, but it's not. And the disjointed nature of that game is so crazy in 2023. It's so wild how every single thing is behind a loading screen. Everywhere.
It's crazy.
Like, you walk in, you load from your ship, you fast travel, load to a planet, load getting out of your ship, walk up to a door, load to go into the store, walk up to another door, load to go into the bedroom, loot, and then you have to load each time to get back out. And it's just like, it's insane. And it kills any sense of place and also any sense of momentum. And it just makes it incredibly hard to play the game for a long period of time.
It makes it really easy to progress, which it
does, yeah.
It just makes me play a menus game.
Right.
Because the game, like when I think about the objective structure, or per se the fact that they've removed the mystical quest effect. This game feels very listicle to me.
Oh yeah.
And just it is. We're seeing another clear example of developers wanting their players to complete the quests, but it's just the direct lines to complete those quests are very clear. There is no mystique. You are reading a book. It's just you are going to talk to a person somewhere. 3 screens later, you are shooting somebody. 3 screens later, you're talking back to the person again. And it's
rapid fire.
It's point and click. It's point and click almost.
It is. It really is. And there's no mystery or variety to how you solve the missions either.
No, not really. No.
It's like playing a Call of Duty campaign. It's literally just go to the arrow and do the thing exactly like they tell you, or fuck off, basically.
Yeah.
There's like 1 or 2 missions where it's like, oh, you could stealth here and enjoy the worst stealth missions in the last 15 years of video games, or you could shoot everyone. And that's those are the 2 options. But most of the time, like in the Ryujin quest, there are these missions where it's like, you have to go hack this computer. And if it was a good game, a Deus Ex game, there'd be like, 8 different ways to get in. Nope, you just walk right up, you hack a lock in front of a security camera, have no reaction to that, hack this guy's personal computer with a man outside staring at you doing it, nothing reacts, then you walk away and you load back to the Ryujin headquarters, and that's it.
Yep.
And there's no choice, there's no role playing.
Nope.
And yeah, like you said, there's 8 loading screens between doing that, and then you've completed a quest, and it's taken 10 minutes, and you're just like, oh, okay, I guess I'll do the next thing. It's wild. The game is crazy. I kind of can't believe it.
It is great. The Ryujin questline is so fascinating. I find it has components that really shine, but like to that point where it's like you think you're going to be infiltrating a space like with outdoors and roof access and catwalks and stuff like this, but no, it is a linear path with 3 sections, and it auto-saves after every section because it knows that you're doing it in a specific order because you have to do it that way. And there are
only one way through it.
Yeah, there are multiple infiltration missions where it knows exactly where you need to go and how to get there, and it's like this feels not feeling very bespoke, if I can be honest.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like the game was, I don't know, I just feel like every piece of what the game needs to work on a very like casual chill level was there.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't string together in the right way. Like I enjoyed Cyberpunk 1.0 back in 2020,
Oh yeah,
2021.
sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2020. Yeah.
That game was, very shallow. But the city was cool, the writing was cool, and the shooting felt good. And that was kind of it. That's kind of all that game had going on, and it was buggy, and it performed terribly even on my high-end PC. But that formula is just like kind of nice and comfy, and it's easygoing. And I felt that at times with Starfield, where I'd be in a mission which was maybe a bit more combat heavy, where you're going through, I don't know, some space environments, you're looting and you're shooting. And I was like, yeah, I could do this for like 30 to 40 hours, and whatever the story is, if it's bad, whatever. Like, I'm not that invested in this game anyway. But it somehow just like failed to deliver like gameplay in a frequency which kept my interest. It was just so much talking, man. I've already said this.
It's insane. There's the amount of dialogue. It's staggering how much writing and voice acting there is, and how little any of it has to say.
There's just not enough combat and gameplay. Gameplay being the combat. I know like walking around talking is gameplay, but in Cyberpunk you're shooting people a lot, all the time. And in Starfield I just wasn't, and maybe I picked like the wrong direction, like I didn't do the pirate stuff. But yeah, it was just, and like Ben said earlier, I didn't really pitch in when Ben was talking about this, but they just don't use space in a very interesting way.
Oh,
when
not
you start
at all,
the Vanguard storyline, whatever, you can visit this museum and it tells you about like these massive wars happening and
Right.
Londinium being overrun. And I'm like, that sounds cool. Can I do that?
No.
You're like, no, you're just in like a kind of peacetime era, I guess. I didn't finish the game, so you guys know better than me.
Yeah, it's very peaceful.
Yep.
There's nothing happening.
There's just like, you're just in a peaceful time of like a human-only galactic civilization, and like you're just doing like, well, what I was doing was just like jobs. Just like little jobs.
At the end of the game, still human only.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
just doing little jobs.
Yeah, they took the widest and most exciting setting possible and did the least amount with it, which is pretty damning. Because, yeah, space is crazy. Science fiction is awesome. It should be full of wild shit, and there isn't anything. The only thing they do is the same thing everything else in media is doing right now, which is, it's a multiverse. And you're like, oh, wow, that's so exciting. That means I have to replay the game a bunch, I guess? And that's not going to happen.
They even nerfed the death claws in this one, for fuck's sake.
Oh yeah, the terramorphs.
We had dragons, we had death claws, and now we've got terramorphs, which are just like tiny little shitty spiders which can't climb a box.
Their games genuinely feel like they're going backwards from Skyrim.
Yeah.
They do.
Like they feel like they're getting less ambitious with each game, and they're just making them bigger, and then pulling back all their systems more and more. The most fun I had with this game was spending the 40 hours using mods and console commands to make one dumb video where I broke the game with it in a bunch
That was fun video.
That's the only fun I had with that game.
I want to tie back to something I think Joe said. The settlements were great. I did really like Neon a lot. I liked walking around Neon and jumping around from shop to shop, because there's some storylines in there where like there's some Chamber of Commerce style quests where like some vendors are like frustrated with other vendors on the row.
Oh right.
And it's just like, I'm like, okay, this is cool. And like, I don't think I explored the well enough, or like the underground section of Neon too much enough as well. But like, I liked a lot of what was going on there, and I wish there had have been like 2 or 3 more of the Neons in the game scattered around, where it's just like, I'm sure Aquila City, or New Aquila City, or whatever the heck it's called, has a little bit of meat on the bones as well. But I did like what they were doing with Neon.
It's also horrendously buggy.
I didn't have too much, actually.
Yeah, it gets there. Yeah, it's, I would say, pretty much on par with all the other Bethesda games in terms of what I saw.
Yeah, I would say stealth is just non-existent, impossible. That isn't real. Like, you can try, but it's just not gonna work for you. I didn't really run into like too many other bugs other than just like just some handshake issues and some like AI just stopping being engaged and coming back and stuff like that. Like,
yeah, I had quests stop working. I had the objective tracker break probably 6 or 8 times. Probably, I think 3 or 4 times I had a main quest NPC become unreachable because they floated up or down through the floor or ceiling.
Yeah, I did that once.
The only way I was able to fix some of those was by sprinting, like reloading a checkpoint over and over again and trying to sprint to them and catch them as their feet were phasing through the roof so I could interact with them and trigger the dialogue.
Beautiful.
That happened, probably like, I think 4 or 5 times. It just went on and on. You know, and I don't know, the NPCs, like the AI, just half the time don't do anything. Things were phasing. I have, like I was saying right before we started, I have 30 minutes, over 30 clips spanning a minute, that all of those are bugs. And it wasn't like Cyberpunk broken, but it was for a game that they spent so much time on and said it's the least buggy game we've made, which is probably true. It did not feel that way at all. And for how little is going on in the game, for how non-clockwork it is, for how minimal the RPG systems are, for how segregated everything is, that makes the bugginess of it way worse for me, because everything is a loaded instance and you're like, why are you not checking all these things when you're loading? Like, it's, if it was a giant, sprawling, like Baldur's Gate's fucking buggy as hell, and it's been like 4 months and 3 years of early access. But it's like, I get it, because this game is kind of completely insane. But Starfield is like a giant Call of Duty campaign full of bugs, and you're just like, what? Huh?
I hear you. I don't know, man. I I'm like I said at the start, I'm trepidatious around this space. I'm trepidatious about these games. I just don't.
It's a troubled genre.
Yeah, like they're just gonna keep trying to make them wider.
I think I'm like fucking finished playing Bethesda games. I felt that way pretty much after Fallout 4, but Skyrim's the only one of these games I enjoyed, and I enjoyed it for 3 weeks 12 years ago and have never touched it since. And
right.
Fallout 4, like, I got a little bit out of, and Starfield I got nothing out of, and now I'm just like, I think I'm good. I think I'm done. I don't like their writing or their combat or their systems at all, and I just don't really give a fuck. I don't need to play them anymore.
I'm definitely gonna try Elder Scrolls 6.
I mean, of course, yeah, I will totally as well, because it's, you know, that's just how my brain is.
Grounded on land.
Yeah, hopefully. But yeah, man, I'm so over that. They just feel so, it feels so old. It feels so old. And like Cyberpunk felt old at the time, but it was like actually good at some things and also felt ahead of a few other areas. Like Starfield just feels like it came out in 2007, you know?
Yeah.
Like it feels older than Fallout 3.
It feels older than Fallout 3 and Skyrim.
That's just crazy. And it's like behind not only the time, but the budget and resources that were available for this like game, and the marketing that was put behind it and sold and told. I'm just astounded. I'm astounded how many people will go out of their way to say that this game is crazy good. I don't know. It's very weird.
I don't know if people. I feel like everyone turned against Starfield.
Yeah,
like
the consensus is shifting.
I think the consensus, from what I've seen at least, everyone just sort of, I feel like, has followed the same track as us. It's just been like, oh yeah, Starfield. Oh, I guess that happened.
I think it's probably because it does give some people a good starting impression, like I mentioned at the very beginning. Like,
yeah.
It's their best looking game. I think the shooting and looting is fun, but everything else, it's just like, this is a weird thing to say, the game just doesn't really work for me.
No, totally.
I don't even know if I would say, as a whole, it's inherently bad, because there's components which I think are quite well done. It's a really strange one, actually. It's not what I expected. I thought it was going to be a complete technical disaster, but it's like the inverse of what they usually make. Where for me, I know Jamison had a really buggy experience, and maybe if I played the whole game I would have as well, but for me it was like mostly well put together from like a design point of view, a gameplay point of view, but it's just like there's no heart or soul to this thing. I wish I had like a better way to put it. I feel like we've repeated the same 5 words over and over again. And it's like, it's really hard to quantify what it's missing, and it's like there's like strings which don't come together, and it's kind of frustrating because I know I really can like Bethesda games as games. I can like this genre, and there's like pieces there which I like quite like, but it just doesn't come together, and the impact is hugely negative, for me anyway, and I think for maybe a lot of people. But yeah, it's a really weird package. Maybe it would be great from modding, but I don't know. I think you need to have like a good initial experience to give a shit enough to go back and mod the game, and I don't have that reverence for it, so I just don't know if I would. Who knows? The Bethesda modding scene is crazy. Maybe they do some like really wacky things with it, but yeah. Closing thoughts, I didn't finish the game, but it was disappointing, which is weird because I didn't really expect much from it, but it kind of teased me in those first couple of hours, where I'm like, oh my god, have Bethesda got their shit together? The reviews are good, the first 5 hours are good, and then I just stopped playing it because I was bored in a space RPG. Like, what?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
I never stop finishing like AAA games. I always push through to the end, but I can't do it. I just don't care. It's so weird. What happened?
Starfield has no cohesion and no soul, I would say. And it's just like none of the systems cohere into something interesting or work, or they hardly even talk to each other, the systems. And then all the personality is just, there is no personality. And it's a hard to quantify thing, the lack of a soul or a personality, but that's probably the worst part of it. It just feels like Amazon or Apple made this. Like they came into the market with a shit ton of money and they just flung it at people who are good at making certain parts of a video game, but they just didn't have anyone with like creative aspirations to make something like memorable. It's very odd to have something with so much going on and to have pretty much none of it have any sense of creativity or personal touch. It's very odd.
Where I'm kind of... What I've wrestled with or one aspect I've wrestled with a lot with Starfield is obviously trying to deduce where the video game is. And what I've concluded is that I would consider Starfield and have considered Starfield an experience, not unlike as much as a video game that Microsoft Flight Simulator is a video game. Like this.
Sure.
This is a collection of menus and screens and environments for you to maneuver around, but I just don't necessarily piece together the video game part of it all.
Yeah.
Not unlike a Microsoft Flight Simulator, where I'm taking in an experience with a controller for sure and doing things and stuff. But I just don't know where the video game is, and so I guess Starfield for me is definitely an experience. And that experience will vary depending on your Bethesda experience or your video game aptitude or whatever. I don't know. But I definitely think Starfield's an experience and just not quite a video game.
This game wasn't loved by its parents.
Yeah.
It's been sterile.
Yeah, a lot of these games, and Starfield feels like sort of like a Ubisoft, like an Assassin's Creed, modern Assassin's Creed, in that it's been like sterilized so much for the mainstream that it's lost everything. And now it's like, who is this for? I don't even know. It's for like some number on a paper that's like the perfect demographic to sell to, but that person isn't real. And so they got like, it feels like an AI made Starfield in a lot of ways.
He does, yeah.
Where you're just like calculating perfect casual video game. Oh wait, we made it, but it has no personality or soul. Oh well, goodbye. That's how that game feels. Very
I'm
weird.
done.
I'm done as well. Yeah.
I'm finished.
All right, now we get to put it on the list.
Yeah, I'm looking at it already.
Looking at the tower.
Below Star Wars.
Below Star Wars.
Yep, Star Wars has a soul. I didn't necessarily love Star Wars, but the characters are good. There's some art in there that's decent.
Yeah,
it's trying.
true.
It has personality, and like it is trying to do something. That's where I would put it.
That's the most we've upset people with a ranking. So that means Star Wars gets to go above something. So maybe people will be happy that it's above Starfield. Although people also love Starfield.
Yeah.
Is it below Dying Light? Nah.
Dying Light 2 was.
Is it above Dying Light? Is kind of where I'm at. But I also.
I think. I would propose between Dying Light and Star Wars, so it would become the new number 11, and Dying Light would go down.
I think I like that. I think I like that too.
I think I might like Dying Light 2 more, but
that's fair. Yeah.
I'm not gonna fight Dying Light 2's corner too aggressively.
I'm trying to think. Like Dying Light 2,
it has a little bit of soul in there, I think.
It does, yeah.
Still got that Eurojank messiness. It was funny.
Such a bummer to me. I had no fun with Dying Light 2 pretty much at all.
But I liked Dying Light 2 a bit.
Yeah, and I had like a tiny bit of fun in Starfield, but I don't even recall it really. I don't know. Yeah, it's tricky.
I would say I enjoyed Dying Light 2 a decent amount more than Starfield.
Dying Light 2 is a more interesting game. It's a more ambitious game.
It's more endearing. It missed the mark.
Endearing. Yeah.
It didn't have billions of dollars behind it.
Yeah, exactly. Let's commit. Come on, let's just put Starfield at number. Let's put 11? It below Dying Light 2.
Yeah, at
you know you want
12.
To.
Yeah.
You know you want to. Come on. It's funny.
Dying Light 2 does have like parkour, and that's fun.
Yeah.
And actually like the city design it's a coherent area.
Dying Light 2 is disappointing, but it isn't that bad. I finished Dying Light 2.
It's just hard for me because like I don't care about Starfield, but I actually care about Dying Light, and Dying Light 2 was such a disappointment. It was such a bummer to me.
That matters.
Whereas like I just don't really give a fuck about Starfield at all. Like
I would say disappointment is above apathy.
You could put Starfield at the bottom of this list below Callisto Protocol, and I wouldn't give a fuck.
I was honestly feeling the same.
Starfield is Starfield's better than Callisto Protocol, I think. Actually, I had a lot of fun with Callisto Protocol.
Again, it is, but I think I said this about like Diablo 4. Callisto Protocol is a more engaging game to me than dying.
I absolutely had more fun with Callisto Protocol than Starfield.
100%. But it is a piece of shit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I mean, the Callisto Protocol is a bit insulting, though. Like, the scope of that game, and it was like full price, and it was like 5 hours. It's a bit insulting.
Oh, yeah.
So
Callisto
weird.
Protocol, yeah. We should really... I don't think we're ever going to get to Redfall. Maybe one day, but, who cares? I feel like I want to move the Callisto Protocol to the graveyard and put Starfield at the very bottom of the actual tower.
Ooh, the graveyard hasn't been used yet.
The graveyard is... I built the graveyard for Redfield. Redfield. For Redfall, but I don't think we'll ever talk about that game, and that's fine.
Maybe Ben can join.
The Callisto Protocol is really bad, but I kind of like that idea now. Move the Callisto Protocol to the graveyard and put Starfield at the very bottom. Yeah, sure, fuck it, let's do that.
All right, so
well, the Xbox fans will love this.
Yeah.
I played this on the Series X via Game Pass. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Todd.
Starfield is like the truest embodiment of Jack of all trades, master of none, completely.
Yeah, they did that for sure.
Thanks for joining us for such a positive chat, Ben.
It makes plugging the podcast a hard sell, but I assure you, dear listener, that the podcast is not this dour. We talk about games that we're actually playing and enjoying. So
by choice.
Yeah, if
I got lots to talk about when we do a podcast. I've been having a great time.
Likewise,
not playing Starfield these last 3 months.
Yeah, so if you want a little bit more gaming variety discussion from the guys, then please go search up Defend the Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Maybe leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts as well. That would be fantastic. Give us a little boost. But otherwise, yeah, it's been a pleasure, guys. I've been looking forward to this chat.
It was honestly not as long as I thought.
I think we kept our criticism concise despite its weight in this conversation.
If we had done this like at the first week of October, it would have been a long one because it would have been really fresh in my brain, and I would have been. Yeah. But I just don't give a fuck about Starfield. I honestly haven't thought about it at all. That it's the embodiment of the John Hamm "I don't think about you at all" image. When people mention Starfield, I'm like, oh yeah, Starfield. I played 90 hours of that game. I haven't thought about it for a second.
I can uninstall it now for sure, which is great.
Oh, it's been off my computer for like 2.5 months. It's awesome.
Uninstalled it 2 days ago.
What's the conversation? Once the talk got on the books, that thing's going right in the bin, Kobe style.
Yeah,
that's so funny. Great.
Thanks for joining.
Hey, anytime.
Well, alright, we have lost our good podcast friend, Ben. He's gone on his way. Thank you for your opinions on Starfield, Benjamin. But it's just me and Jamison back to talk about the second game of this episode of The Tower, which is Spoodermoon 2. And like you said before we start recording, this is kind of like a console battle.
Yeah, unintentionally.
Starfield versus Spider-Man. And since we've already put Starfield at the bottom of the tower except for the graveyard, it would have to be a bit of a fucking disaster for Sony to lose this one, but no spoilers. I will start off by saying I really liked Spider-Man 2018, but after 2018, I was mostly satisfied with the formula of Spider-Man. I remember you played Miles Morales and I just didn't really care. I just didn't want more, really. And then I played Miles Morales 6 months afterwards, and I was like, yeah, that was fine. It was like 5 to 6 hours. The basic format of Spider-Man is pretty casual and satisfying, but I really didn't care about Spider-Man 2 because I just didn't want to put like another 20 to 30 hours into this format. And the problem with Spider-Man is it's just kind of locked in like these boxes. It's always going to be stuck in, well, I think it's always going to be stuck in New York. It's always the same dude, so you can't really change him too much. And I do have like a summary to kind of surmise my overall feelings of Spider-Man 2. What I've written down here is, for me, Spider-Man 2 was like a battle. It was diminishing returns versus Insomniac's unhinged creativity.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because I didn't connect with Spider-Man 2 like I did with Spider-Man 1. I felt the fatigue and the repetition in the combat systems, the traversal, being around New York, even though they added more boroughs, and even though Brooklyn's in it, I don't really recognize it. It still just feels like swinging around New York to me.
Yeah.
But it feels like every step along the way, Insomniac is fully aware of this like creative limitation, this little box they're stuck in, and they are doing everything they can to like just make it fresh and interesting and weird the further this game goes along. And I feel like I really respect this game maybe more than I enjoyed it. I came away from this game maybe liking and respecting Insomniac more than I ever have, because this game goes places and does things which are so bombastic and unhinged and kind of stupid that I kind of ended this game loving it, even though I was kind of bored by sections of the gameplay, if that makes sense. I have a weird relationship with Spider-Man 2. It does add a lot to the combat. It adds chunks to the traversal and the movements. You know, there's two characters now, there's Miles and Peter. They are doing everything they can to make this feel like a proper sequel with extra layers of stuff, game stuff on top of it, even though they are stuck in these creative limitations. And I could just like feel and hear the like development table talks of like, we're fucking still stuck in New York. How do we make this feel like a brand new game? And I'm gonna be honest, it didn't fully succeed in that mission for me, but I do want to say that compared to a lot of people, I am very sensitive to repetition in video games, more than most people, evidently, from like my tastes and how bored I get of franchises. And you know, I can't play multiplayer games and Destiny because I just can't be bothered to do the same thing over and over again. So if you're not affected by the repetition of Spider-Man 2, I think you're probably gonna adore this game, because even though I was a little bored of the combat flow, I don't want to say I was bored of swinging around, but it just kind of felt a bit tedious to me. I still came away from this game like kind of like awe-inspired by parts of it, and just really liking the journey it goes on and the things that Insomniac reach for. Yeah, I think that's all I need to say for my summary. I have a mixed relationship with the game, but overall, I kind of loved it. I don't know, it's weird. It's weird. I don't know how to think about it.
Yeah, the first game you definitely liked a lot more than I did, and a lot of that was because the combat I found difficult to click with, partially because of, I think it was at the time the Arkham game muscle memory was still there, and then I found all the side stuff in the first game to be really weird and not the good way. It was like disjointed and not fun in a way where this game is kind of disjointed, but in a way I actually like and I think is weirdly cohesive. It's a bit of a conundrum, I would say. But then Miles Morales, I was like, this is an improvement, because I think Miles's powers are just fundamentally better, and that applies to this game as well. He just has like better crowd control and is just more fun to play. But then also them making it 6 hours was awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, with 2, I was just kind of like, I mean, I'll play it, and I'm sure it'll be fine and enjoyable, but I really had no anticipation for it whatsoever.
Yeah, same.
And I went in expecting to just sort of play through the main story and be like, yeah, that was fine, but I would pretty much echo fairly similarly and say I actually ended up really, really enjoying Spider-Man 2 a lot. Yeah. I ended up accidentally doing everything in it, which is probably not a surprise to you, but
no,
you know.
It's not.
It's also a really good biking game. Like 45 minutes in that game is just like vanishes because it's so paced out for like 2-minute chunks.
Yeah.
But like when the game started, you know, and they started rolling out the activities, I was like, I am never doing any of these things, never. But then by like hour 6, I think to just start getting into it, I think the best and most impressive part of the game is just how well paced it is, in terms of nothing ever lasts for more than like 45 seconds. And it's kind of an amazing feat of jangling keys, ADHD game design in like the most perfect way. Every single side activity, I mean, the pictures and the spider bots literally take 3 seconds, and then the more advanced or more in-depth side activities take maybe 3 minutes at most. And it's so easy to just be, swing, swing. Oh, there's a chest, grab the chest, swing, swing. Oh, there's a picture, drop down, take a picture. Oh, swing, swing. There's a environmental thing where you do some weird random side activity, and every single side activity goes places. I think you mentioned, you already said, like, they just sort of go for it completely in terms of trying to get every single creative idea possible out of their limited setting.
Yeah.
And that applies to everything in the game, including the side activities, and including, like, within each tier of each type of side activity. Every single one of them feels different. Like, every single prowler den feels different. Every single where you're shooting bees feels different, because they always do something unexpected within that container. And that was a big part that kept me playing. It was just like, I want to see what other weird things they have come up with, and they pretty much never have the same trick twice throughout the whole game, which is kind of amazing.
I have to be honest, I didn't do, like, the side stuff.
Oh no, I'm not surprised.
I just, I don't know, didn't really need more. I didn't want to push my fatigue and my breaking point with this formula.
Yeah.
I did all the side quests that I could see, because they're, like, not side activities, they're, like, traditional side quests.
Right.
And they were good. They also have, like, unique cinematic gameplay moments, very, like, small contained stories with just ordinary citizens. Some of them are, like, cute and heartfelt, and yeah, they all felt really unique and worthwhile, like, with cool writing and little unique gameplay sections. It was cool. They were all good.
Yeah.
I do have some, like, things to talk about when it comes to combat in this game.
I don't really have a lot to say about combat aside from, like, I didn't find it annoying the way I found the first game to be annoying. And I think that's most of it comes down to Peter also getting crowd control abilities.
Yeah.
And that helps a lot. And then everything else just felt exactly the same, which, yeah, I don't know. They're starting to stretch it thin, I would say, for me. It's completely fine, an enjoyable combat system, but it's not the highlight.
I still enjoy it. I feel like there's this weird Sony formula with all melee combat that has started to develop, where I felt like we talked about this with our Final Fantasy 16 talk. God of War, Ragnarok. Where all the combat systems which Sony make feel like you press square, then you press circle to dodge, and then you deploy abilities, and then you wait for your abilities to recharge. And I don't remember the first game feeling so ability heavy. Maybe because it's a sequel and they're upping the amount of people that are attacking you, so you, like you said, you need a bunch of crowd control abilities. But again, I just felt like I was, like, doing a couple of basic melee attacks which weren't abilities. I like punching people up in the air and then kicking them out of the air, because I think I had some buffs which upped, I don't know, air damage, whatever. But yeah, I feel like 70% of combat is just, like, using these abilities, and they look really cool. The animation in this game is top tier. But I don't know, it just feels very similar to a lot of games I played recently in Sony's library, and it's getting a little suspicious, like they're sharing notes.
Yeah, it really does feel like almost all these games are just managing your cooldowns. And they're not, there really is no management. It's really just cycling through your cooldowns. The game was insanely easy. Which is fine, but it much like God of War, much like Final Fantasy, you just sort of, your brain just isn't doing much, and it makes the combat not very engaging. It looks awesome, it feels good, it's satisfying, it's fun, but it's not, your brain is not really doing much, which I'm sure is the point as well. And that's, there's a reason these games sell well and are so popular with the mainstream, is because they're accessible and they're easy to play, but it definitely starts to fatigue, especially because this was the third one of those from Sony, or at least on a PS5, that in the last 12 months where all you do is manage your cooldown or cycle through your cooldowns.
There is one thing they try to add in, and I don't know why, but my brain just could not do it. I'll get used to it, and that was the new parry system. I like parrying in games.
Yeah.
I like Sekiro. I think it's satisfying to time things correctly. But there's something about the way it was displayed. And again, it's been a little while since I played Spider-Man 2 because we're really slow to get these chats out. But I seem to remember, like, there's like a yellow icon that appears, I think, on the enemy and not on your Spider-Man.
Right.
So I would always dodge by instinct because now we're like, I don't know, probably 40 hours into this franchise overall. By the time parrying actually matters in like some boss fights near the end of the game. And I don't know what it was about the parry system, but my brain just like could not lock into it. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say except for whatever they did, however it's designed, however it's like communicated to the player that you have to parry. My brain would just dodge every time. And some of them you have to parry. They're like undodgeable attacks. And I don't know how to quantify it. I don't know what was wrong with my brain. It kind of reminds me of when you talked about Spider-Man all the way back in 2018 and saying that the combat just didn't click with you and you were getting your ass kicked because of muscle memory. That is how I felt about the parry system. I can't really explain it, but it just didn't work for my mind.
Yeah, I am notoriously anti-parrying. I just never fucking do it. I've never been good at the timing for whatever reason. I'm always too early. And also, the parry system doesn't matter because the cooldowns you just destroy everything except for like a couple of little boss instances where you have to parry something.
Yeah.
It was frustrating because I think parrying is frustrating, but so be it. It didn't, they didn't build the whole game around it, which I'm glad.
Didn't matter too much. Like, the game's pretty easy. You can kind of take a beating anyway.
Yeah.
I think the only thing Okay, you go.
I was just going to say, like, regarding the story missions, they have like the rest of the game, they have an enjoyable variety in all those story missions. Yeah. They do a little, very tiny little thing, like one mission where the portal stuff basically from Ratchet and Clank shows up.
Yeah.
And I really wanted them to do more with
Me
that.
too, man.
Maybe they will, because that little sequence is probably the most impressive thing in the game.
Yeah, and that one instance when you're in the Arctic for like 5 seconds was like, holy shit, this is so interesting.
Yeah.
We're not in New York. And that's it for the whole game.
And that's it. I know, it's a bummer. It really is just like a 45-second chunk, and that's it for the whole game. But I feel like that is just indicative of their entire design process for this game, of just like 45 seconds, use that idea. All right, throw that idea in the garbage. Next idea, 45 seconds, use it, throw it away, And it's admirable, and it's entertaining because you pretty much never see the same trick twice, and that's
for sure.
Quite impressive for a 20 or 30 hour game.
It's got a bit of like Nintendo / It Takes Two magic in there at times.
I agree, yeah.
And I love that stuff. Like the part where you just change character, not a Spider-Man, you're playing as basically the villain. I don't know if that's a spoiler, I mean, this game's been out for a while. That bit was just so amazing. I was like, what the fuck? You just play as the other guy and it's violent and horrifying and the animation's incredible and it has like a moveset, and then that's it. You just don't play as that character ever again.
It's like a 20-minute chunk of the game at most, yeah.
Yeah, even though, I mean, there were some leaks and something was listed on those leaks, so maybe that is coming back.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I probably could have told you that anyways. That would have been my guess, that they would have more of that. Speaking of character switching, I was disappointed that they still had the stupid MJ stealth sections, and they certainly there was only 3, I think, and they certainly expanded what's there. She has, a gun that tases people and does other things, but man, they're just so not interesting. And I'm so bored of the stealth, half hunched over, crouch speed walking around, and and it's very easy, but it's just fucking boring, and I don't want I'm not here for that. If I want that, I'll go play The Last of Us, and I don't want to play The Last of Us. Let me just be a dumb spider guy. Those
sections felt a little bit prideful to me, where whoever made like the MJ sections from the 2018 game wanted redemption, where everyone were like, these are shit, and the guy was like, I'll make them better. And he did. Whoever made them, he or she, they are better. It's a much better designed stealth section. But you're going from like high octane superhero action to, a girl skulking around with a taser. And it's like a whiplash of momentum. And I don't know, they were trying to do like a little thing where you're switching between like basically 4 characters if you kind of encompass the whole cast. Pacing mechanic. But I don't know, some of them were too long. Like the one where you're in New York Zoo. Like that's not actually that short of a section. It's like 20-30 minutes as MJ.
Oh yeah. It's a lengthy portion, and it just sort of is a momentum killer. I would say, like they're just sort of. I remember when the first one popped up, I was like, oh god, you've got to be kidding me! They still have this? I'm going to bed.
Yeah, they're better, but still, I think just leave it on the cutting room floor. I think.
Yeah, like I don't need it again in the third game. Like I'm okay with. Play as MJ, do different things, but just don't make them stealth sections. Like, make them Batman detective scenes or something. That could be more compelling, maybe, but just stealth stuff is just, I'm just not into it. Especially in a superhero game.
They had that one really, like, low-key mission where you're in, like, a theme park with your friends.
Yeah, oh yeah, like, I like that.
Like, for pacing, like, that stuff's, like, fine.
Yeah.
Because, again, the game kind of allowed you to rush through that if you wanted, or you didn't have to do, like, all the fairground games. I don't know, I just feel like for pacing, I think I'm just with you. Like, slow, crouch, stealth, like, automatic fail sections. I mean, it wasn't quite auto-fail, but you know what I'm saying.
No, it's
that
not
format.
Quite, but I'm just so over it. I was over it, like, 5 years ago, and they just keep doing it in almost all the Sony games have sections where there is something like that, and
yeah,
I'm fine. Delete them, keep it, let The Last of Us do that, and let me have fun as Spider-Man.
Or just keep MJ as, like, the Venom version of MJ, because that mission was so funny.
Yeah, that was really
That's
silly.
when the story starts to get really good and just absolutely unhinged with no rules whatsoever.
The story stuff definitely gets there, but, like, the first 2/3 of this game, I was so not interested in the story at all. It was just like, we're hunting around for Lizard Man and his venom, or his cure, or whatever there, and I was just like, nothing was sticking in my brain at all until basically the Venom stuff really popped off in the last, like, 5 hours.
Yeah. This game reminds me a little bit of Spider-Man 3, the movie.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Because people hated on that movie because there is, like, too many cooks in the kitchen in Spider-Man 3.
Oh, yeah. It's a mess.
And it's schlocky and kind of embarrassing. And I kind of felt the same towards Spider-Man 2, the video game story in the second half. But it's really fun and stupid in a way which just made me laugh multiple times. Yeah, I really respect and love this game. Even though it kind of reminds me about how I feel towards Tears of the Kingdom, where I was like, I don't like a lot of sections of Tears of the Kingdom, but I just respect the hell out of the design of that game.
Right.
I feel very similar towards Spider-Man 2, but design is a part of it. There's some, like, clever gameplay stuff in there, but it's more just like when it comes to, like, Sony sequels, when it comes to, like, Horizon and God of War, we've kind of come away from those two games being like, I kind of prefer the original. And I feel like Insomniac was seeing, like, a weird formula with Sony sequels and just wanted to fucking go for it. And after Spider-Man 2, I'm more excited about, like, Wolverine and maybe
Spider-Man 3, honestly. Like, I'm curious where they go with it,
But I just want to see them do a game or like, be unleashed in a world where they don't have such boundaries.
Totally. Yeah, like, I think, Spider-Man is still very much in the mold of the first game, but they really do just wing it, and just in a way that I wish the other, like, Horizon and God of War had as well. Yeah, they just, and it doesn't always work, but that's fine because
at least they went for it,
Exactly. Yeah. So, like, I was checked out for a huge majority of the story, and I also think I found a lot of the writing in the game to be I think cloying is the right word, where it's just like, fucking everyone is so nice and so good and so friendly. And it's like, oh, community service and oh, this and that. I'm like, shut up. You're so good. Fuck off.
Yeah.
But, they're all likable, but it felt weird how just ridiculously nice everyone in the game is. And so when Venom showed up and was, like, fucking ripping heads off for the last 5 hours, I was like, yay, weird evil shit again.
It's kind of shocking, honestly.
Yeah, it was.
He just fucking kills people, man.
Yeah. The last 5 hours were a blast, honestly, and I also think they deliver on some of the drama well, in the way that Miles Morales did, and in a way that the end of the first game also did. Like, they get some drama in there between the characters, and it's good, it's solid, but it's also surrounded by more fun and also more dark and sinister things. Whereas The prior 2/3 are just sunshine and rainbows, and every single person in New York City is the nicest person ever, and New York City is like the cleanest, safest, most beautiful, and happiest place on earth, and you're like, this is so fucking stupid. It was like sickeningly nice at times.
I do find like the main trio of characters like nauseatingly wholesome.
Yes.
For me, they didn't like when they tried to villainize Pete when he becomes Venom. It just doesn't really work.
No, not for that Peter.
I don't know if it's like, I don't want to blame the voice actor, but like it just doesn't stick the landing of like convincing me that he's evil. It just feels a little silly, and you know, it doesn't turn out to be like a huge component of the overarching story, so it's not like a massive deal. But yeah, again, it's just like a tonal box that they're stuck in. Spider-Man is mega wholesome. What can you do? You can't make him evil without there being some alien from space in his brain. Again, I don't know what they do about that. But
I still think that you can balance Spider-Man's niceness with other stuff. Like the Spider-Verse movies, I think, do a really good job of being like, oh, he's a human being still. He's flawed. The other people in his life are flawed. There's like a lot of weird shit in the world. But this game, it's just like the number of people you encounter who are so nice is just like, fuck off at a certain point.
I'm looking forward to Wolverine because I just want someone who's mean. Someone be mean in an Insomniac game.
Yeah, it's surprising to come away from essentially the third Spider-Man game in 5 years and be like, oh, I'm actually more interested in their other Marvel project.
Yeah.
Let's pretend Marvel Wolverine than I was beforehand, you know, and the fact that that game's not going to be set in New York, and it's going to be M-rated is like, it sounds like the craziest thing in the world after Spider-Man 2, basically.
Yeah.
And they did a lot with the very limited scope of Spider-Man 2,
yeah.
so
God,
I'm excited to see where they go.
They're just good, man. Insomniac are so good. God, it was annoying.
I think that's my biggest summary point as well, is just like, and I think this game, I was thinking about it after we talked about Starfield, that Starfield and Spider-Man are actually like a great duo for this discussion because both games are appealing and targeting mainstream casual accessibility.
Right.
And Starfield goes so far in that direction that it is devoid of all personality and all experimentation. It's like they were forced with a gun to remove anything that could be interesting because they were afraid it would mean more people wouldn't play it. And then Spider-Man is like, no, we're going to make the most casual and mainstream game possible, but we're going to also have a ton of fun inside those constraints. And yeah, and it's amazing how much Spider-Man nails being mainstream and enjoyable while also being exciting and, you know, fun for us old miserable idiots.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I just think it's really impressive to play a game where you kind of come away saying the two main pillars of gameplay being combat and traversal, saying like you're kind of bored of both of them, but you come away like admiring the hell out of the game and being really excited for the next one.
Yeah.
Because it has so much more to offer than just being like the best playing game in the world. I think maybe because AAA has become so frequently devoid of creativity or soul, when playing a game where you can tell that people are having fun with their world and being like adventurous and interesting, it's just like, a AAA game with ideas and people behind it that want to make the game.
Right.
You know?
That is, I think, even the even better Starfield Spider-Man comparison is that, Starfield just feels like no one had any fun making it. Yeah. And like they had a gun held to their head to make Starfield. And Spider-Man is a game, and there were a few games this year where you're like, these guys had fun making this game, and you can feel it in the game.
Yeah, you can. It makes me happy, dude. Even though, you know, Spider-Man 2 is not going to be my game of the year. We talked about it in the podcast. I'm a huge Insomniac fan because of Ratchet & Clank. And maybe a little bit of me was a bit cynical, like, oh, my beloved Insomniac have gone down the Marvel well, and they're just making this franchise for the normies. And to play this game and be like, no, everyone gets to, all the people in the world, all the normies, this game's selling 10 million copies or whatever, everyone's seeing what they can do now, and that is absolutely a good thing by me, even if I would rather have Ratchet and Clank over Spider-Man. As an old school Insomniac fan, this game made me happy outside of the game itself. And I'm really excited for Spider-Man 3, and I went in not giving a shit about Spider-Man 2, so that's pretty impressive.
They're also, like, keeping Marvel relevant, I feel like, where, like, the entire film and television department is just in shambles and no one gives a fuck anymore, whereas the video games, everyone is still super excited by them, and I think it's a good reminder that, after 15 years of Marvel just beating us over the head, it's nice to be remember that comic book stuff is still fun. When it's good, and there's a lot of room for it to be good outside of just like the super formulaic movie and TV stuff. So yeah, it was sort of surprisingly like revitalizing, I would say. Yeah, good for them, man. God, they're good. All right, it's time. Ranking time. Tower time. Does it go above Starfield? It does go above Starfield. It does. It makes the cut. Wow, good job, Spider-Man. My gut. Yeah. It's above God of War for me. Yeah, I would say it's above God of War, but still below Horizon for me. That was my initial instinct as well. Yeah. However, I just like too many things about Horizon's like world, not even from a story perspective, just like from a design, aesthetic, combat, all that stuff. I still find more compelling. Like the combat is at this point like 80% of the appeal of Horizon almost, so good, which is kind of wild. Yeah. And the enemy variety, like Spider-Man 2, you just basically fight guys. I think I am gonna agree and not fight that. Horizon for me was only disappointing because of the story, and I've kind of said the Spider-Man 2 story is like a bunch of bullshit at times, but in a way which I enjoyed. And yeah, like I said, the combat and movement of Spider-Man is aged a little bit for me, even though Insomniac did their best to kind of freshen it up. And God of War Ragnarok, I really enjoyed the combat, but the story for me was just, God. I think the highs of God of War Ragnarok are still higher than even like Spider-Man or Horizon, like the big boss fights, in Ragnarok and stuff like that. Like, there's some really crazy shit in Spider-Man though. Yeah, but like, there wasn't anything that was just like, holy fuck, that was an amazing fight that I felt after playing Spider-Man 2. The way that I did something in Ragnarok, like when you fight the, Nidhogg or the weird like crystal snake thing in the desert, stuff like that. Like the big fights in Ragnarok are super awesome, but Spider-Man is just more consistent. Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is just a Sony first-party chunk anyway, so just chuck it in there. It truly is, yeah. They're all faring well. They're never number one, but they're not at the bottom. And yeah, the Sony formula can still be good. I would say that was maybe the most reassuring thing about Spider-Man 2. Is like, oh, okay, maybe it's not as grim as I was thinking. Yeah, because the last Horizon and God of War chats definitely had some doom and gloom from us for sure. Yeah, but rightly so. I mean, like now the dust has settled. When you look at like Horizon, God of War, and Spider-Man 2 as like a chunk, I feel like just Sony really know what they're doing when it comes to their IPs and keeping everything going and fresh and relevant. And they're all three are undeniably good games. Good games, that are doing a lot of things exceptionally well and better than most other games. It's just they're a little predictable, but hey, predictable but quality is still something I'm down for. So yeah, they're all kind of a mess in their own ways in certain areas. Yeah, but Spider-Man 2 makes the mess fun. It does, yeah. the mess is the appeal. It's true. And it's a coherent mess as opposed to some other stuff. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. I don't know when we'll be back for another Tower episode. I don't either. We will be back, of course, in due time. But yeah, it'll probably be a little while. There's really not much scheduled right now, which is odd. It's really just like Final Fantasy VII Part 2, and then there's nothing scheduled for the entire rest of the year, and that's out in end of February. So I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know. I'm not sure when we'll have another Tower episode. Maybe we'll do like if like 3 months have passed and we haven't really done one, maybe we'll do like a Patreon special or something.
Yeah, well, we can always just break the rules and bring in some indie stuff as well. A good, high-quality AA indie stuff.
We can do whatever we want with the Tower.
Fuck we want.
Yeah.
Back up.
The next long talkie video will be the best of 2023 at some point.
Yeah. But apart from that, guys, thank you for listening to another episode of The Tower. Like Jamison just said, our next long mega talk will be our top 10 of 2024, which will be interesting, because not to spoil stuff, a lot of AAA stuff hasn't resonated with me this year. So,
I look forward to hearing your list.
Yeah, it's going to be very different from everyone else's Game of the Year list, I would imagine.
Can Joe come up with 10 games?
I actually had a look the other day, and it's going to be a stretch. I did not make it to 10 games.
That feels like me the last couple of years. But
what do you do if you don't play Baldur's Gate 3? What do you put at the top? We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah, apart from that, guys, thanks for listening, and we'll be back with another mega long chat soon, in quotation marks. Eventually.
Yeah.
Later.